So this week we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 9, Manufacturing Costs, and we're going to talk about how to prepare a raw materials budget when you've got several different raw materials that go into making a product. If we look at this is the raw materials budget we discussed in the prior week. So it was straightforward. You're only assuming that you've got one type of raw material that goes into your product. But we know in reality, for many companies, there's more than one type of raw material that it takes to make a product. So this is a simplified example of what materials might go into a skateboard. And a bill of materials, also known as a BOM, is a list of all the raw materials that are needed to produce one unit of the product, one finished good unit. So if you look at this kind of simplified example, to make a skateboard, we need 8 screws, we need two axles, we need 1 board, and then we need 4 wheels. And within the wheels, we break that down even further. We need 1 tire, 1 rim, and 4 screws. So this is just kind of a simple example of all the different raw materials that might go into making a skateboard. And this is assuming, right, that they're not making the board from scratch. They're buying it from someone else. They're not making the wheels themselves. They're buying those from someone else. So when you've got a lot of different raw materials, there's 2 different ways to break this down. For those items that are particularly significant, that are either a high dollar amount in the product or you use a lot of it in the product, you're going to do a separate raw materials budget for each separate item. So the material budget that we learned about in the last chapter, you do that for each major item in your product. So for the skateboard, for example, the board is probably a pretty significant item. So we'd probably do a raw materials budget just for the board all by itself. For those items that are less significant, you either budget for them as a whole or you divide them into separate classes. So with the screws or the wheels, they may not be such a high dollar amount or such a significant part of the finished product. So we may divide those into separate classes, or we may budget for those as a whole. So let's look at how we do that. Your textbook defines 3 different classes. If you look at example 6 being on page 197, it breaks these materials down into 3 different classes for us, which is a pretty good breakdown of how you would do this in the real world. Class X are materials for which they know the exact quantity they're going to need, they know the price per unit, and they know the exact schedule by every single month that they'll need this product. So a slightly more significant part of the finished good. Class Y are materials for which they know the quantity they're going to need, but they actually don't know the schedule by every month. Less significant materials, perhaps, that they don't have a detailed production schedule for. So we're going to have some way of breaking that quantity down by month so we can prepare a raw materials budget by month. Class Z are those items that perhaps are a very insignificant part of the finished product. So maybe it's the screws, or maybe it's something in other products that we produce. It could be something like paint maybe, or solder, or a thread or something. Some more like factory supplies perhaps. So we only know the total amount that we're going to spend for the year. We don't know exactly how much we're going to need each month. So we'll talk about how to break this class down as well. So in the next video, I'm going to walk you through an example of how to break this budget down. I'm going to use class 1, 2, and 3, which will correspond with class X, Y, and Z from the textbook. So I'll see you in the next video.